And that is why anime was responsible for the fall of the Soviet Union. Undeniable proof.
That makes no sense. What the hell are you doing? I thought you quit.
Listen, I did for a while, but life is shit. I'm not even talking personally, okay? Every time I turn on the news, every time I go on social media, it's always something horrible about how everything is going to shit and the world is just dying or whatever.
Dude, you're totally exaggerating. It's probably just tennis.
That's just one channel. That wasn't tennis.
Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Ibrahim Hamid and you're watching Scope-e-Suratehaal. Today's topic is the news. We all know what the news is, or at least I hope you know what it is. It's that thing your grandparents watch while you wait for them to finish hogging the TV so that you can play some FIFA with your friends. Unless you're like me and you have no friends because you're a social reject. But no, seriously, we all know what the news is, or at least what it's supposed to be. The news is supposed to be informative, it's supposed to be enlightening, and at its best, it can be so much more. It can hold people accountable for their actions. It can take really complex topics and dumb them down in a way that people like you and me can understand them. Take something like the economy. In an ideal world, the news would tell you what the new budget means for your plans of buying a new car or starting a new business. And this is a really necessary service. I mean, do you really think anyone has the time to educate themselves about any of the issues the news covers? Don't you dare suggest I should do my own research.
Abhi, that's literally your job.
But yeah, that's the news in a nutshell. It tells you, hey, this thing is important, here's why you should care, and here's what you can do about it. There's just one problem. As someone who's tried to watch both local and international cable news, I'm not sure it actually does any of that.
Is there going to be like a Kardashian competition? Are they going to become like engineers?
Yet another person claiming it's racist to have a white Santa.
Wait, time out. I'm not saying that you should stop being up to date with what's going on. All I'm saying is that maybe you should be a bit careful about letting the news form your view of how things work. For one, the news has an incentive to make you feel like shit. Let me explain. You might have noticed how the news is constantly dominated by negative stories. When they're not talking about genocide and murder, they're talking about corruption. When they're not talking about that, they're talking about how things are getting more expensive. And when they finally run out of things to talk about, they hold these weird panels and discussions where everyone's yelling at each other and nothing makes sense. Kind of like arguing with my wife. Studies have shown that watching bad news takes a mental toll on you, whether it's daily news or reporting on a singular horrific event like a terrorist attack. Turns out that constant reminders of why you shouldn't be happy make you unhappy. So there's a reason why the news is like this, and it has something to do with what psychologists call the negativity bias. And it's our desire to remember, hear, and talk about bad news. So if you've ever wondered why all the aunties in your neighborhood seem addicted to talking about the fact that you can't find a rishta, negativity bias. And the fact that you're a loser. Now, scientists have a few ideas about why this is a thing. Some think that we're basically built to notice bad news as quickly as possible to avoid any danger or potential threats. But the point remains, we notice bad news a lot more than we do good news. Now, I know what you're thinking. This isn't true, right? People want to be happy. They want to hear about all that's good in the world. Let me tell you something. In 2014, a Russian newspaper called the City Reporter decided that on the 1st of December, they were only gonna report on good news. Nothing about crumbling infrastructure, nothing about bursting water pipes, nothing about corrupt officials, no bad news, just good vibes. They lost 66% of their readership. So you can see why there's an incentive to only ever show you bad news. News channels are huge companies that need to make a profit. They need viewership, they need ratings, but most importantly, they need you to be tuned into their channel for as long as possible. And they do that by shoving all the horrible stuff that's going on in the world down your throat and calling it journalism. It doesn't help that the news media in Pakistan has this really weird relationship with the government. And this is because the government actually spends the most money when it comes to advertising in both news channels and newspapers. So the government essentially subsidizes the news media, but it also creates a situation where you have to wonder, could certain channels get punished by losing advertising revenue if they speak out against the government? So you might disagree with what I've said so far and say, who needs to know more about how things are going perfectly fine? We need to know more about what's going wrong so that we can fix it. And that criticism is perfectly valid. I mean, that's the price you pay to be an informed citizen, right? But when you watch the news, are you actually learning anything?
मेरा नंबर स्टार्ट हो चुका तहम्मुल रखें
अपना गिरबान That's not what it is about climate science. It's about his ability to tell the truth about anything.
सोने जा रहा है
Now once again, let me reiterate, I'm not saying that all news is bad. But when you get home from work or school and you flick the TV onto some news channel and there's some debate or discussion going on, do you actually think it's constructive or useful? Like, I know from personal experience that people my age don't tend to watch the news because it's too much theater. There isn't enough substance. It's not news, it's not informative, it's entertainment. To most young people, the average debate on a news channel is just a moderate and a bunch of people all talking over each other and no one citing any sources for what they're saying. Kind of like talking to that one uncle who just insists that Waqar Zaka is a Yehudi agent and refuses to elaborate. Waqar bhai, if you're watching this, zara idhar bhi Bitcoin yes karwaएं. So what I'm trying to say is that it's almost as if people don't watch the news to stay in the loop. They watch it to feel a sense of confirmation for what they already believe in. Think about it. Do your parents or older relatives seem genuinely interested in learning more? Or do they watch these debates and discussions because they've already picked a side that they support and they just want to see that side win in an argument? You can probably see where I'm going with this. The news often creates polarization. By the way, before you start attacking me in the comments and call me a raw agent, this is absolutely not a Pakistan-specific problem. So let me just give you an example. Take Geo News. It's one of the biggest news channels in Pakistan, and it's often been accused of showing a bias towards PMLN, one of the political parties in Pakistan, in various ways. So critics claim that Geo News tends to run pro-PMLN content, or content that makes other parties look bad, or just generally sympathetic language when it comes to anything PMLN related. Geo News has also been involved in throwing punches at the military and its involvement in politics, which has resulted in the channel being scrambled, reshuffled, and even removed. Now, I'm not saying that Geo News actually does any of this. I'm not trying to make that claim. But here's the thing. When people think that a newspaper or news channel is openly taking a political stance like this, people who support an opposing political party aren't going to listen to anything that channel has to say, even when what they're saying is actually true. This is political polarization. Instead of having any actual proper political discourse, you just have these echo chambers where your opinion just keeps getting reaffirmed and you never have to think, hey, maybe that other news channel or party is right about some things. And that isn't all. There's another thing that polarization leads to that if you're young, you're probably already pretty familiar with. It's fake news. You know what it looks like. It's those WhatsApp forwarded messages that your grandparents send you about how Sinovac has a magnet in it that does something and how the vaccine is just a massive Jewish conspiracy that the government isn't telling you about. And this is a serious issue in Pakistan, to the point that the president, Dr. Arif Alvi, even said that there is a huge need to discourage the culture of spreading fake news because it's causing chaos and misleading people. Now you're probably thinking, what does fake news have to do with polarization? Well, the link is stronger than you think. There's a study done in the US which shows that sharing fake news is less about being ignorant to that news and more about how strong your political beliefs are. And it makes complete sense. If you really genuinely support a political party, then it can be hard to sort out what's fake from what's real when your main goal is to just find stories that either support your views or attack someone else's. You stop caring about the truth when the only thing going through your mind is, I have to prove myself right, or I have to prove you wrong. Looking at it this way, fake news is just a symptom of a society becoming more and more polarized. And it's all because of how the news is designed to divide us. Now, you don't have to listen to any of my bullshit. I mean, hey man, it's your life. Do what you want. You want to keep watching cable news? That's fine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. You want to, I don't know, write an angry comment about how I'm a dumb idiot who understands nothing? That's your right. Go ahead. You want to drop out of university and develop an unhealthy crack addiction? I'm not sure why you'd want that, but I support you. So yeah, in conclusion, be careful of who you watch, be careful of who you believe. I know a lot of news makes things seem either black or white, good or bad, and God, I wish things were that simple. But just because you support someone or something politically doesn't mean you have to agree with everything they say. Your favorite TV anchor or politician might be a representative of an ideology that you really like, but you have to remember, they're just human. They have flaws, they make mistakes, and sometimes they do and say really messed up things. Or worse, they might even be from HSN. Hello everyone, thanks for watching the first episode of Scope-e-Suratehaal. If you have any ideas for any other topics, feel free to write them down. I'm always looking for more stuff to talk about. Special thanks to Faizan who threw the pillow at me during this filming. Hey guys!